not electoral trading system under the WTO and unequivocally reject unilateralism and protectionism.
When your economy becomes, so big and your interests are all over the world, you have to protect your own interests.
I don't think we're going into a world of deep protectionism going forward. I see more regionalism.
I don't think there's a big bang win here for either side.
Coming up, we continue our review of the Bloomberg New Economy Forum. Ray Dalio says investing will look very different in a post-crisis world.
There are worlds that will be orderly and will prosper in this kind of an environment, and you could see it.
And ECB President Christine Lagarde warns policymakers about financial spillover.
We need to really stay clear of that because that would be an aggravating factor.
This is Bloomberg.
Welcome back to our review of the 2020 Bloomberg New Economy Forum. I'm Carol Massar. The global economy will undoubtedly be different when the world emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic. How it changes will largely depend on how leaders in government, business, and finance work together to rebuild it. Those leaders had plenty to say at the forum. Scarlett Fu has more from our program.
Thanks, Carol. Even before the coronavirus pandemic struck, regime change was underway in the world of investing and finance. Now it's happening even faster. Ray Dalio has been preparing to navigate these choppy waters for a long time. He explained how his firm, Bridgewater, is adapting its portfolio strategy.
There's a period of, I think, great uncertainty and great risk. And so I think there are three words: diversification, liquidity, and then differentiation. We want to make sure that our investors are not just concentrated in some of the traditional markets. So diversification of how to do that well can reduce risk without reducing opportunity. And that means currency diversification, including the reserve currencies, how much exposure is to the reserve currencies, but it means currency diversification, asset class diversification, country diversification, and that should be the starting point of portfolios. In terms of liquidity, it allows you the flexibility to change as circumstances change. And differentiation is the most important consideration now. There are two different worlds. There are worlds that will be orderly and will prosper in this kind of an environment, and you could see it. And that differentiation versus other worlds and markets related to that will be bankrupt and disorderly. That kind of differentiation is important.
As president of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde will play a critical role in the EU's recovery post-crisis. She discussed the potential for a COVID-19 vaccine by early next year and a key challenge facing policymakers.
I think that the second wave that we saw presents risks. The first risk that I would think of is the fact that consumers, investors, employers do not regard the pandemic as a one-off, this V-shape that we all aspire to, but as something that will recur over the course of time, and as a result would lead them to completely change their behavior. In other words, how about if they start saving again for precautionary purposes? How about if they continue to freeze and hold their investment plans because of the uncertainty generated by this situation? And the second risk that I see is the potential real/financial spillover, which we have managed to avoid so far. So in other words, we have not had the financial sector amplifying the downside that has weighed on the real economy, and we need to really stay clear of that, because that would be an aggravating factor.
A portion of the New Economy Forum was devoted to the challenges facing cities. Urban economies have been hit hard during the pandemic, but civic leaders are responding with creativity and tenacity, reinventing the modern metropolis. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi shared his views on the future of cities.
We are looking at a future where a major chunk of education, healthcare, shopping, food experiences may happen online. Our city need to be ready for the convergence of the physical and digital worlds.
Of course, cities have had to confront public health threats for centuries. Here's a look at how lessons learned from previous pandemics may help with the global recovery from COVID-19.
Humanity has faced the challenge of deadly disease for thousands of years. And whenever a new pandemic takes hold, civilizations adapt in response. In the 19th century, cholera epidemics in Europe set off an outcry for investment in modern sanitation and urban renewal. The movement sparked Baron Haussmann's transformation of Paris into the city of light, trading crowded slums for wide, tree-lined boulevards and monuments lit by gas lamps. Haussmann's modernization prompted cities all over the world to follow suit. London added sewage systems, and New York built Central Park, adding a reservoir and green space for city dwellers to take in fresh air. At the turn of the 20th century, tuberculosis swept through the US, creating a greater need for urban parks and bringing light and air into building designs. The 1918 flu pandemic led to the invention of the radiator, with steam heating systems designed to allow windows to be left open, even during winter months, for improved ventilation. COVID-19 has already intensified a push by cities around the world to reduce pollution by adding bike lanes, pedestrian walkways, and implementing building design changes. Paris is pioneering the idea of a 15-minute city, creating walkable communities of shops, schools, and clinics, reducing the necessity of cars or public transport. In the distant past, it took decades for pandemics to leave their mark on our city's urban design and architectural landscape. Well, the changes sparked by this COVID-19 are already taking shape.
Coming up, more from the Bloomberg New Economy Forum. BlackRock's Larry Fink sees momentum building to combat the climate crisis.
We were beginning to see this tsunami of change already from the private sector.
And with vaccines on the horizon, Bill Gates discusses how COVID can be conquered. This is Bloomberg.
Welcome back to our review of the 2020